welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
So you're there in Native Instruments Maschine mk3, right? You've got these great patterns, scenes cooking.
Yeah, the creative part's flowing.
Exactly. But then comes that next step. How do you actually take those bits and pieces and, build a whole song?
That's the big question, isn't it? And that's precisely what we're getting into today.
We're looking at a really helpful tutorial video for this, actually. It's from the Sound Test Room over on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, they do great stuff. This one really walks you through taking those, musical building blocks you've made in Maschine and arranging them properly. So you get a track with a beginning, middle, and, an end.
Seems like a natural progression for a lot of users, I think.
Yeah.
The tutorial even mentions it builds on some earlier stuff they did about just making scenes and patterns.
Right. So if you've already been playing around with that, kind of getting your head around how scenes work,
then you're pretty much set for this part. Okay, let's dive in then. The main goal here is moving beyond just having loops, right?
Yeah, moving past those individual sections, learning how to really structure them using Machine's own tools, the arranger view, or sometimes it's called the song view.
Gotcha. Arranger or song view.
Same thing, basically. But before we jump right into the arranging part, maybe we should quickly touch on the scenes themselves, just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Good idea. So scenes in Maschine, fundamentally, they're containers, right?
Exactly. They hold all the different musical patterns you've programmed for different parts of your track. Think of them as self-contained musical moments or sections.
Little snapshots of your ideas.
Yeah.
And what I always liked about Maschine is how you see them.
Oh, yeah. Visually, it's great.
You see them on the mk3 controller, pads light up, and then you see the same layout in the software.
Uh-huh. That visual link is key between the hardware you're touching and what's on the screen.
Makes it really intuitive.
And that seamless connection, that mirroring, it becomes even more important when we start talking about arranging the whole song.
Right. So how do we actually get into that arrangement mode, this song mode or arranger view?
Well, Native Instruments made it pretty easy, thankfully. The tutorial shows probably the most direct way is just clicking the icon.
There's a dedicated button for it in the software interface?
Yep. Usually up near the top, you'll spot an icon specifically for song mode or the arranger. Click that.
Okay. Simple enough.
And the video also shows another way, just in case. You can go up to the main view menu at the top of the software window.
Standard file menu stuff.
Yeah, and then just select song from the drop-down list there. Either way works, gets you to the same place.
And that place, the arranger view in the software, it looks like what's on the hardware.
Pretty much, yeah. The tutorial really stresses that. What you see on screen directly reflects the layout on the Maschine hardware itself. That consistency is, it's just really helpful for workflow. Keeps things smooth.
Okay, great. So we've clicked the button or use the menu. We're now looking at the song mode. This is where we build the track structure.
This is it. Now the fun starts. And the tutorial makes an interesting suggestion right off the bat.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
They suggest starting and actually ending your whole arrangement with a completely blank scene.
A blank scene. Why?
In their example, they used scene 19, which they just knew was empty. It was only 1 bar long.
Okay, but why add silence, basically?
Well, the video mentions it's mainly for mastering purposes.
Ah, okay. Tell me more.
That little bit of blank space at the very beginning and the very end, it might seem odd, but it gives whoever is mastering the track, or even you if you do it yourself, a bit of clean space.
Like a buffer.
Exactly, a buffer. Helps avoid any potential clipping right at the start or finish when they apply processing. Plus, it makes fade-ins and fade-outs cleaner, just leads to a more polished sound in the end.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. A pro tip right there. So, blank scene first, then what? How do we bring in the actual music? The scenes we've made.
Right. So in that arranger view, the tutorial points you towards a little plus button.
A plus button.
Click that. Or alternatively, you can just right-click anywhere in that main timeline area and choose Insert.
And that brings up?
That brings up a list of all the scenes you've already created in your project. Your intro, scene, verse, scene, chorus, whatever you've named them.
Got it. And this is where you start mapping out the song.
This is it. You just select the scenes you want, one by one, and they get added to the timeline in that order.
So you just click, 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 add scene 1, then scene 2, then scene 1 again, maybe?
Yep. And what's really cool is how flexible it is once they're in there. You can easily mess with these scene blocks right on the timeline.
Mess with them how?
Well, the tutorial shows how you can easily duplicate a scene. Say you want your chorus to repeat.
Okay, copy-paste, basically.
Pretty much. And you can also change how long each scene plays for. You just click on the edge of the block in the timeline and drag it to the right to make it longer, or left to make it shorter. So if you decide that verse needs to be 8 bars instead of 4, you just stretch it out visually.
Oh, that's handy.
So you're not stuck with the original length of the scene pattern.
Not at all. You can make them play for longer, repeat them, and you can add the same scene multiple times in different places. Put them in any order you want.
Total freedom, then.
Huge amount of creative control.
Yeah.
Building variations, repeating hooks for emphasis. You're really constructing the whole journey of the track right there.
The tutorial will give an example of this, right?
Yeah. They started simple. They added scenes 1 through 5 to the timeline.
Okay.
And then they just dragged the ends of each of those blocks so that each scene played twice in a row. Like scene 1 plays again, then scene 2 plays, scene 2 again, and so on.
A basic linear structure to start.
Exactly. But then they showed how you can get way more intricate.
Ah, okay. Beyond just repeating whole sections.
Yeah. Instead of just those long blocks, you can start inserting different scenes for shorter bursts. Like they showed putting in scene 4 for just 1 bar.
1 bar.
And then immediately switching to scene 6, then 7, then 8, maybe each for a bar or 2. So you can make really quick changes like fills or transitions.
Precisely. It lets you create much more complex rhythmic stuff, harmonic shifts, keep the listener guessing, add little variations.
That really shows the power of the arranger view, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're not just sequencing scenes end to end.
Not at all. You can chop them up, rearrange them however you like, stretch them. It's super visual, super intuitive.
And all the while, the software is keeping track.
Constantly. The tutorial points out how the software display follows along, showing you where you are in the song structure.
And that syncs with the hardware lights, too.
Perfectly. You see it on the screen, you see it on the machine controller's lights and display. It's this constant feedback loop. Really helps you stay oriented.
That hardware-software connection, again, seems like a real strength of Maschine.
Definitely a recurring theme. It's core to how it works. So, okay. You've done all that. You've meticulously built your arrangement. Got your intro, verses, choruses, bridge, outro. Everything's laid out.
You're happy with it. It sounds like a song.
Exactly. What's the absolutely critical next step?
You got to get it out of Maschine right.
Yeah.
Export it as an audio file people can actually listen to.
Bingo! Time to export. The tutorial walks through this bit very clearly, too.
So where do we go for that?
You head up to the File menu in the software, usually top left corner.
Okay.
And then find the Export Audio option in that menu. Give that a click.
Right. And that opens up some settings, I imagine?
Yep. Opens a dialog box with all your export options. First thing you'll probably want to do is tell it where to save the file.
Choose a folder, name the track.
Exactly. In the video, they just picked the desktop to make it easy to find, and they named their track Undertow, I think it was.
Okay. Location, name, what else?
Then there's the range setting. This is important. If you want the whole song you just arranged.
Which you usually do.
Right. You need to make sure this is set to all. That tells Maschine to export everything in the arranger timeline.
Makes sense. Then there was source.
Yeah, source. The tutorial picked master. That means you're exporting the main stereo output of your whole project, everything mixed together.
That's normally what you want for a finished track, right?
Usually, yeah. Though they did mention you could choose individual groups or even sounds if you needed stems, for example, but master is standard for the final mixdown.
Got it. What about normalize? I saw that option.
Yeah, normalize. Turning that on basically makes Maschine automatically boost the volume of the track, so the loudest peak hits, like 0 dBFS or close to it.
Is that a good idea?
The tutorial kind of said it's optional, personal preference, really. You can turn it on or leave it off. It's something you can definitely handle later in mastering anyway, maybe with more control.
Okay, so optional, then file type.
File type, yeah. They used wave. .wave. That's a really common choice. High quality, uncompressed audio. Good for masters.
Standard stuff. And finally, sample rate and bit depth.
Right at the end, yeah. Sample rate and bit depth. The person in the video mentioned that they liked 44.1 kilohertz sample rate and 16-bit depth.
Kind of standard CD quality almost.
Yeah, they even called it a bit old-fashioned maybe, but honestly, it's still totally fine for loads of applications. Perfectly good setting.
So you set all that up, location, name, range to all, source to master, normalize on or off, wave, 44.1, 16-bit.
Or whatever settings you prefer, of course. Then you just hit the export button.
And wait for it to render.
Exactly. There's that little moment of anticipation while it processes everything.
Hopefully it doesn't take too long.
Depends on the track length and your computer, I guess. The tutorial did mention one funny little quirk they sometimes ran into.
Oh, potential issue.
Not really an issue, just sometimes the exported file didn't immediately show up exactly where they told it to save, like on the desktop.
Huh. Weird.
Yeah, they said sometimes they had to do a quick search on their computer to actually find the file. So just a little heads up, if it doesn't appear instantly, don't panic. Maybe just search for the file name.
Good tip. Don't panic, just search.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the main steps then.
Sure. To go from scenes to a song in Maschine. First, get into that song mode, or arranger view.
Using the icon or the view menu.
Then use the I+ button, or right-click Insert, to add your scenes to the timeline.
Put them in the order you want.
Then you can tweak them, duplicate them, change their length by dragging the edges.
Get the structure just right.
And finally, File menu, Export Audio. Set your options, hit Export, and boom, you've got an audio file.
And that whole process, that's really the core of turning those initial ideas, those loops and patterns, into something more substantial. A complete track.
A finished piece of music. It's a big step.
It really is, taking fragments and giving them form, a narrative.
So maybe a final thought for people listening, something to chew on. Now that you know how to arrange scenes like this, try messing with it deliberately. Don't just do verse, chorus, verse, chorus. What happens if you throw in really unexpected scene orders? Or super short scene lengths?
Ooh, yeah. Like, take a tiny one-bar transition scene and loop it 4 times in the middle of a verse.
Exactly. Or bring in a totally different vibe for just half a beat somewhere. Play around with the structure itself.
You might stumble onto some really unique arrangements that way. Things you wouldn't have planned logically, but just sound cool.
It could be where the magic happens.
Definitely worth experimenting. And actually, it's worth mentioning, too, that sound test room video we've been talking about.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop after the arranging part. It actually goes on to show how they mastered the track they just arranged using T-Rex software.
Ah, so there's a next step shown right there.
Yeah. So for anyone who's just finished arranging their track in Maschine and is thinking, okay, how do I make this sound polished and loud and ready? Well, looking into mastering techniques like they show in the rest of that video, that's the logical next phase.
Perfect. From idea to arrangement to mastering, the whole journey.
Pretty much covers the core workflow.